Is India arming Ukraine against Russia? Is India supplying ammunition shells to Ukraine to attack Russian troops? Such absurd and bizarre questions have been raised across social media after this report by news agency Reuters, which says Indian artillery is entering Ukraine despite Russian protests. For those who don't want to go into the details of a news story, it is easy to imply that New Delhi is arming Ukraine and that has angered President Putin and Russia, but nothing could be further from the truth. However, soon this headline was pasted all over global media. Here is the Kiev Post. Here is Radio Free Europe repeating the same headline, and there are countless more. Soon the Modi government rubbished all such reports with a strongly worded rebuttal. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs says, quote, "We have seen the Reuters report. It is speculative and misleading. It implies violations by India where none exist, and hence it is inaccurate and mischievous. India has an impeccable track record of compliance with international obligations on the export of military and dual-use items," unquote. Indian defense exports have been surging, especially Indian-made artillery shells and military special ops gear has been in high demand. According to think tank Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, India exported $3 billion worth of arms and equipment between 2018 and 2023. But in 2024 alone, Indian defense exports have already surpassed $2.5 billion, though the target for New Delhi is to raise it to $6 billion per year by 2030. MEA explained, quote, "India has been carrying out its defense exports taking into account of international obligations of non-proliferation and based on its own robust legal and regulatory framework, which includes holistic assessment of relevant criteria, including end-user obligations and certifications. All these Indian defense sales are legal and none of the countries India exports to have any restrictions." The Reuters report adds that Indian artillery shells sold legally to European nations have been illegally diverted to Ukraine. So we must get into the details. How can Indian ammunition enter Ukraine if New Delhi has not sold it to Kiev? Three major Indian defense companies, including Kalyani Strategic Systems, Munitions India, and Yantra, sold $2.8 million worth of ammunition or munition components to 4 European countries in 2 years before 2022. Now that figure increased to $135.2 million between February 2022 and July 2024. Now these 4 European countries are Italy, Spain, the Czech Republic, and Slovenia. So defense contractors from these 4 European countries are then illegally diverting legally exported Indian ammunition to Ukraine to be used against Russian troops. The report adds, unlisted Italian defense contractor Meccanica per Elettronica was among the companies sending Indian-made shells to Ukraine, unquote. Italy and the Czech Republic are leading the initiative to supply Kiev with artillery shells from outside the European Union. Now this as per Spanish official sources quoted in media. The report adds that despite all this, less than 1% of ammunition reaching Ukraine originated in India. As well as, quote, Indian arms export regulations limit the use of weaponry to the dedicated purchaser who risks future sales being terminated if unauthorized transfers occur, unquote. Now, which means countries buying Indian arms cannot sell it to a third party without approval from New Delhi. However, someone is breaking the law, and certainly it is not India. It is like saying India asked Russia to stop China from arming Pakistan and that New Delhi is angry with Russia for failing to do so. It doesn't work that way. But of course, it was sure to grab headlines. Indian arms in Ukraine. Are such news stories aimed to create a rift between India and Russia, whose friendship has lasted multiple wars, the Cold War, and geopolitical upheavals? To keep the facts straight, India is not arming either Russia or Ukraine in this war. As Prime Minister Modi declared in Kiev, India is on the side of peace and negotiations. However, the report suggests that New Delhi, which shares a tight relationship with Moscow, did nothing to stop this trade or throttle the supply of ammunition despite Russia's disapproval. Remember, this is not the first time that reports of India arming Ukraine have emerged. In fact, India has taken every step to ensure its weapons are not used in the Russia-Ukraine war. In January of this year, the Ministry of External Affairs dismissed similar reports. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal added, quote, "We have also seen some media reports in this regard. We can categorically say that we have not sent any of this artillery ammunition to Ukraine," unquote. It can't be clearer than that. Then in May of this year, the Indian government tightened its noose over military equipment, preventing it from slipping into the wrong hands, referring to unintended or unauthorized countries. The Ministry of Defense sounded the alarm by instructing private manufacturers to adhere to end-user certification rules for export to prevent unauthorized use of weapons. Now, the purpose of the document is to certify that purchaser is the ultimate recipient of the equipment and has no intention of transferring it to a third party. An important thing to note here is that presently, Indian companies are barred from exporting weapons to 4 countries, among others. Now, these include Ukraine, Turkey, China, and Pakistan. Reuters' report also comes at a time when India is playing proactive role in resolving the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval carried Prime Minister Modi's peace plan to Moscow and met Russian President Vladimir Putin a few days ago on the sidelines of the BRICS National Security Advisors conclave in St. Petersburg. Doval's visit comes only days after Putin's statement on seeing India, China, and Brazil as mediators in the potential peace talks. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi, during his visit to Kiev, met Zelensky, called for a direct dialogue to end the conflict, and outlined a proposal for Ukraine to enter talks with Russia. Due to its close ties with Moscow, India has refrained from voting in favor of numerous United Nations resolutions against Russia's actions in Ukraine. So the big question remains, are such reports meant to create a rift between India and Russia? And who is behind such a move? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.